Now, droves of people are still trying to leave the fighting in Sudan behind. Many are taking a 13-hour bus journey from Khartoum to Port Sudan. That's where citizens and foreign nationals sometimes wait for days to board ships. The journey is tense, with checkpoints by both the army and the rapid support forces along the way.
People coming from Khartoum, who are escaping the war and trying to find safety and security, arrive here under very difficult circumstances. Some people who have passed through here don't have food, some are sick, some are very old.
Well, Arise East Africa correspondent Mark Bichachi has been monitoring developments in the region, and he joins me now live from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Good to see you, Mark. So Martin Griffiths, the head of the UN's emergency relief, has managed to get into Sudan, where hundreds of thousands need aid because of the fighting. Tell us more about what he'll be doing there.
Well, what he'll be doing is first and foremost addressing issues where he is, where it is at Port Sudan, where we've got thousands of Sudanese citizens who are looking for help. It is considered a safe city, so there is an internal immigration issue there. The second issue is going to try to establish a humanitarian aid corridor within the rest of Sudan. They have actually established help in at least 4 Sudanese states. Some, as he had said, that were headed to Darfur were attacked. The other issue that he has to ensure is that the ceasefires actually work. And this particular ceasefire provides a window upon which possibly these 2 generals will send representatives either to Saudi Arabia, which is preferred, or to South Sudan, so that they can begin peace negotiations. So those are the main agendas that he has on his table, and we must admit that for the first time in a while there is a bit of hope, especially if the 2 generals decide to talk issues out.
And Mark, the UN chief Antonio Guterres is in Kenya, the country where you are, I suppose, to support Martin Griffiths. He's trying to mobilize all the actors to try to stem the tide of this war, but that requires the kind of security guarantees which only the 2 generals in the conflict can provide. Do we know if he will be speaking to those 2 generals directly to try to create room for any kind of political dialogue, or is that pretty much left to Martin Griffiths?
Well, the first thing that Guterres is doing in Kenya is establishing a base of operation. How can the United Nations support the activities that the special envoy is doing within the Sudan? So remember that Kenya hosts the largest UN center this side of the world. So this makes for a logical springboard, if you will, not only for humanitarian efforts, but also for diplomatic efforts. Remember, the president of Kenya, together with the president of Djibouti and South Sudan, have been involved in these particular negotiations to bring peace. So the diplomatic efforts as well will also be in Guterres' agenda. We know that our president has offered our country as a base for operations. So it is expected that if he can, he will also speak to the generals. But a lot of that is being coordinated from Kenya, as probably the country that has been most stable in the region over the time, and also the country that hosts the largest UN center in this side of the world.
And I mean, South Sudan, Mark, it seems an unlikely facilitator of peace in Sudan, given that it has been mired in civil war itself.
Yes, indeed, it is a bed of strange fellows. Even given that Djibouti is a place upon which many people have been used to exit from. Chad, which is also having its own troubles, has seen an influx of refugees. So it is not just South Sudan; it is the countries that surround Sudan in general. We look at Egypt, for example, with its military junta. Libya is also dealing with the rebels. So all around Sudan, they are not left with good choices, which is why Kenya, which does not share a border anymore with Sudan itself, it shares a border with South Sudan, is probably the center that this is going to be. And this just goes to show you how important this particular conflict is, in the sense that it could easily flare up tensions across the region.
So, Mark, a 7-day ceasefire replacing a set of rolling 3-day ceasefires that they've had in place in the past week and that have been observed pretty patchily. I mean, at the risk of making you repeat yourself, do you hold out much hope?
Well, the hope that I hold is not much, but it is on the basis that every time a ceasefire has been declared, what the Sudanese people have been able to enjoy is lulls in the fighting. They've had windows upon which they can run to the shops, or some of them have been able to escape the fighting in the Sudan. So the hope of these ceasefires that it brings is twofold. Number one, that the Sudanese people can escape, and then number two, that the aid that is so badly needed in the hospitals based on the injuries, the 47 million people who already depend on aid for food, can be able at last to access this. So this is the hope that we hold. But as far as the next sign of hope that we need to look for is whether the generals will actually commit to peace talks and actually send people to Saudi Arabia or even South Sudan for these particular talks. Let's remember that movement in Sudan requires that they need to go through each other's territories to get where they're going. So will they allow their emissaries to be able to move through each other's territories to be able to attend peace talks?
Very important points you raised there, Mark. Thank you very much indeed. Mark Bichachi is Arise East Africa correspondent, and he was talking to me there from Nairobi, Kenya.